Well, Hayat Hayid is a consulting fellow at Chatham House's Middle East and North Africa programme, and he joins us live now from here in London. Hayid, you could have just popped in to see me here in the studio, couldn't you? But thank you for joining me.
Thank you for
After
having me.
14 years of conflict, Syria's situation has suddenly moved so fast. I'm sure some viewers are struggling to keep up with all of the changes in Syria and the news coming out of it. Can you just tell me a bit more about this sudden summit? And do you think these diplomats potentially need to move even faster to prevent any sort of partitioning of Syria on sectarian lines?
Well, thank you for having me. I think, yeah, it took them a week to meet together and then discuss how they need to support Syria, that basically moving forward. And now I think that the issue is, while the principles they laid out are clear and positive, we need to see how they are going to implement those principles, or ensuring that those principles are implemented. And the other thing is that we hope that we will not continue to see just external actors and players discussing Syria without the presence of Syrians themselves.
I mean, every day we are seeing Israeli strikes on Syrian military bases. Can you just tell me a bit more about what's going on there? Why is Israel making these moves? Will the strikes get worse for Syrians? I know we've not seen any civilian casualties just yet, but could that be on the cards?
Well, for now, at least the official sort of narrative from the Israeli side is that they are eliminating any military equipment or sites that could potentially threaten their security. Now, they also launched, as you mentioned, some sort of ground operation, and they occupied new territories inside Syria, which violates the deconflicting treaty, which was signed in 1974. The problem right now is that there has been no the groups did not provoke Israel and did not make any statement to justify such aggression. The other thing is that Israel has already reinforced its front lines or territories with Syria during the fight with Hezbollah. So they have the capabilities to defend themselves without grabbing new areas. And the problem right now is that they are creating tension and they are destabilizing Syria at a critical point where the people there, they're just trying to figure out how to move forward.
I want to talk a bit about Austin Tice, which to me, as a former foreign correspondent, it's just an absolutely wild story. He's an American journalist who was kidnapped in Syria, and he's been missing for 12 years. Now, we've seen some absolutely incredible coverage of prisoners being freed across Syria. We've seen Clarissa Ward doing her thing there. What more do we know about Austin and his whereabouts?
Unfortunately, not much. There has been contacts with different groups inside Syria, whether those are civilian groups or even, as indicated before, with HTS, the main armed actor there. But there has been no clear indication as to what happened to him or his fate. The problem right now is that the people there, they're dealing with thousands of people who have been detained in those facilities. And unfortunately, in many of those detention facilities, it seems that the documents that sort of manage who is there and what happened to the people who were detained there have been either burned or they have not been at least safeguarded in a way that will allow people to have easy access, which explains why it's really difficult to have clear information about what really happened, not only to him, to the thousands of others who have been detained in those facilities.
Yes, indeed. I want to take a moment to talk about Syrian asylum seekers. Over the past few days, we've seen Western governments almost falling over themselves, competing with each other to get Syrian asylum seekers out of their countries. It's really surprised me because Syria doesn't seem entirely ready for citizens to safely return at the moment. But anyway, within hours of Assad's ouster, so many EU countries halted applications from Syrian nationals, and some are even getting ready to deport Syrians. I mean, that surprised me. Has that surprised you?
Not really, although it's disappointing, but it's not really surprising because this sort of policy that the EU countries have been implementing or trying to push Syrian out for quite some time, and they took the first opportunity to pose the ability to process those asylum sort of applications. The problem right now is that they're making the wrong moves rather than supporting the transition in Syria and ensuring that there is stable environment for people to go back to and allow them to actually even go visit and see that it's safe for them to go there. They're just creating concerns and fears among Syrians, and that will only create more problems instead of basically encouraging and motivating people to make that decision on their own. What's needed right now is to ensure that the transition that is happening there is peaceful, is inclusive, and that will lead to a better future. And I think that alone will be enough for many people to go back, as we have seen in recent days where many people have went back voluntarily to
Yes.
the country. So pushing them out is not the right reason. Encouraging them and creating that environment is what's needed.
Well, we shall see what happens next. Hayed, live in London, round the corner from me in this studio. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.